We're going to talk through setting up Filevault2 now on your Mac OS X. And first, before we even install it, the first consideration is if you want the highest level of security, then don't install Filevault immediately after first getting it, and don't put any sensitive data on it. Leave it a few days before you actually encrypt it and use it properly. I know that this is a pain, but according to the documentation, Filevault relies on pseudo-random number generator PRNG, and this needs to be seeded with entropy, which it can get from you using the Mac. So for entropy, it is better just to use the Mac for a little while, not put anything sensitive on it, then install Filevault. The PRNG can be manually seeded with entropy by writing to dev random before enabling Filevault, but you need to know what you're doing to do that, so I don't really recommend it. You can enable Filevault2 via the command line, just use this command here. I'll also show you how to do it via the GUI. Via the GUI you want to go to System Preferences, which is here. Then you want to go to Security and Privacy, then Filevault, unlock the configuration, and then there you have it, turn on Filevault. Pretty straightforward, so let's click on that. If you have multiple accounts on Mac, you might see this message here telling you that each user must type in their password before they will be able to unlock the disk. For each user, click the Enable User button and enter the user's password. OS X then automatically enables any user accounts that you add after turning on Filevault. Once that is done, you'll be presented with recovery options. You need to choose how you want to be able to unlock your disk and reset your password in case you ever forget your password. Now, if you're using OS X Mavericks, you can choose to store a Filevault recovery key with Apple by providing the questions and answers to 3 security questions. I do not recommend that, don't do it. Apple will be able to decrypt your drive. If you're using OS X Yosemite or later, you'll see this message here. And you can choose to use your iCloud account to unlock your disk and reset your password, which is this option here, which again, I don't recommend, not for optimal privacy and security. And then you have this option here. Instead, you can create a local recovery key and keep the key somewhere safe, obviously other than on your encrypted startup disk, and click continue. And as it says here, make a copy of this code and store it somewhere safe. And continue again. And restart. After the Mac reboots, the disk starts encryption in the background as you use the Mac, and this will take some time. It happens only while your Mac is awake or it's plugged in. And you can check the progress here if you go to the Filevault section of the Security and Privacy Preferences. And of course, any files that you create are automatically encrypted as they're saved to your startup disk. It's pretty simple. As you can see here, we've got a little timer, 13 minutes remaining. This is a very small disk, so it's happening quite quickly on this. And of course, if you wanted to switch it off, you click on Turn Off Filevault. But you cannot do that until the disk has fully encrypted. But that's not it yet. We want to add some extra steps to harden the disk encryption against attacks. And the first thing we want to do is we want to set a firmware password. This means that when you boot up, you'll be presented with a password to authenticate past the firmware stage. And what this does is it mitigates against direct memory access attacks via interfaces such as FireWire and Thunderbolt. It also prevents the Mac from starting up from any device other than your startup disk. Then theoretically, the only way to restart the firmware password is through an Apple Store. You want to start up the Mac holding the Command and R key, and that will boot you into the OS X recovery mode that you can see here. Then you want to go to the Utilities menu, as you can see, and Firmware Password Utility. Enter your password and quit, and obviously the next time you boot, the firmware password will be active. If you go to this link here, you can find the instructions on how to set the firmware password, but it's exactly as I have just described. When using Filevault, ideally, you do not want to use sleep or hibernate. You want to power the device off instead, which makes sure that no encryption keys are stored in memory. And if you do use standby, the Filevault secret key is stored in EFI to transparently come out of standby or sleep mode, and you don't want this to happen. With a tool like Deep Sleep, you can configure how it sleeps and how it stores the keys. Deep Sleep isn't free, you can see there it's about £4 for UK pounds. And for free, you can use the pmset command, which enables you to configure how it sleeps and stores keys. And the command you can see here, this will destroy the Filevault key when going into standby mode. So if you want to use standby, then you want to set this. Then when it comes out of standby, it will prompt you for the password. You can take it further and replace sleep with a full hibernate like the Windows version. But this command must be used with the previous command that I just showed you. And this command here will change sleep so that now it will store a copy of memory to persistent storage, the disk, and will remove power to memory. The system will restore from disk image, but this will give you slower sleeps, slower wakes, but it will give you better battery life. I have to say though, I have enabled this myself and found it a little bit buggy, and it made my Mac refuse to come back, so I've had to reboot it. But your experiences may differ, but you don't need to set it into hibernate mode if you don't want to. You could just destroy the key on sleep, as you can see here. Here is the man page for pmset, which I suggest you check out. And if I scroll down, it has details about the different hibernate levels, so I recommend you read this as well before you do anything. And after you have made any changes, you can use pmset-g, which will give you the status of the changes that you've made. And you can see here the hibernate mode is currently set to 0, but if you were to use this command here, it would set it to 25, and running this command would show this as being changed to whatever you've changed it to. If you want to dig into the details of Filevault2, then I suggest this PDF document here. And there's also a presentation here that I would recommend. And Apple has a technical white paper on the best practices for deploying Filevault2. Worth a read, but I've really just summarized all of it just now. So that's setting up Filevault2. Hope that helps.